Three important things happen in chapter 24 of Goldratt's The Goal. For the past three chapters, Rogo and his team have been working the constraint in their plan, figuring out how to get more capacity towards achieving their goal of increasing growth, increasing cash flow, and decreasing inventory. The results of that are how we start the chapter. Rogo walks through a hot parking lot. He comes in and they're popping champagne because the plant has had record orders and everyone wants to celebrate. This leads to a night of a little bit of drinking, and Rogo's team member Stacey gives him a ride home. This leads to interesting activity number 2 for the chapter, and that is that as Stacey and Rogo walk in with Rogo drunk, he starts to fall, trips, she lands on top of him. Of course, this happens right as Julie Rogo is coming home, so Rogo's wife, who has been bouncing in and out of his life over the past few chapters, now has come home only to find her husband and his plant team member rolling around on the floor drunk. Even though they're laughing, she immediately calls Rogo a bastard and drives away. Goldratt says, she backs out of the driveway at 30 miles an hour in the pitch black. This continues to go on for the next couple of pages. Julie actually gets a phone call from Stacey, who had given Alex a ride home. So here, again, a little bit of change management. We're showing that the messenger matters a lot in how well a message can be received. So Stacey puts the call into Julie, and we end the chapter actually with Rogo and her working on another date. The third major item, it happens between that drunken escapade and Julie's return, and that's that Stacey and others in the plants come to Rogo with my favorite quote from the chapter, and they say the constraints are spreading. So whereas they thought they had the constraints under control, we thought that we had done all this magic work with Nakamura and Mike Haley and others, unlocking the constraint so we could get more flow and therefore more cash out of the plant. It turns out that once you start to achieve that, all kinds of crazy things will happen with a plant. And this is something you'll see in real life. So for anyone who's ever worked on these kinds of activities, it is similar that you go through a process like chapters 21, 22, 23, focused. You can create some really big impact very quickly. It gets a lot trickier though once you've unleashed that initial constraint. In his panic of, oh my goodness, what's happening? I thought we had it figured out. Rogo puts a call into Jonah. Jonah says, I'll come take a look at what's happening. And in that, Rogo lets on that he's been doing this priority ticketing activity. This is something that's covered in a lot of earlier chapters, and I haven't covered very much here because it's not something you would actually do in a plant where they're hot-lotting quite a bit of things. So they're putting color-coded tags, like if something's important, if it's going through the constraint, it gets a red. And what you'll see over the next couple of chapters is that from an education standpoint, what Goldratt's doing here is showing you that the hot lotting and prioritizing of activity doesn't really help. If anything, what you really need to do is prioritize what are the things you start and make sure that you finish everything that you do start. So those are the three big activities from chapter 24. You've got the record happening, right? So record sales. That leads to the interpersonal kerfuffle as Stacey gives Rogo a ride home and Julie Rogo encounters him. And then we kind of end the chapter with a cliffhanger number 3, and that's that the constraints are spreading. So we're going to see why this kind of hot lotting and prioritizing of inventory, which has been going on subtly in the background for the past couple chapters, but now comes to a head in 24. We'll see through the Socratic method how Goldratt shows us that that's not the way to go over these coming chapters. The Goal is a great book. You should go out, purchase it. You should listen to it. Every day that you take the theory of constraints and apply it to your own life and to the world around you, you make the world a better place.